Hi, welcome to Talking and Reading from Japan. I'm your host, Hidemi Woods. Here I'll read part of my books I wrote and talk about it or anything that pops up in my mind. I hope you enjoy with me. Today I'll read one of my memoirs titled The Girl in Kyoto. This is one of my memoirs. I wrote quite a few memoirs and published them. And today's episode is from this book is what happened when I was a teenager. Today's episode is called My Grandfather's Girlfriend. It's about a girlfriend of my grandfather who appeared suddenly in my family's life when my grandfather was getting old. My grandfather's girlfriend. My grandfather liked to go out very much. When I still lived with him in my hometown, he was dressed with a flashy red tie to go out one day. He showed off his new tie to my parents and me while saying, "You had better dress showily to look young as you get older." We frowned on him but didn't oppose him as usual. I just asked him where he was going with such a flamboyant tie, and he told me that he was seeing his girlfriend. It became customary for him to have coffee with her at a cafe inside an expensive hotel. To me, it sounded a date, but my grandmother didn't care at all. His girlfriend was an old widowed woman named Miss Tamada. He talked about her so much that almost everything he was talking about had gotten to be something related to her. He began to have her over and often saw her in our house. She became a good friend of my grandmother too, who usually hated others. She and my grandparents would talk for hours about mainly one topic, that was how honorable and virtuous my grandfather was. As a person who doubted it, I chuckled whenever I overheard them. She raved about my grandfather every time she saw me, which was so annoying. Since she exalted him immensely, my grandparents were absorbed in her visits, while other members of my family, my parents, my sister, and I, felt quite unpleasant. 4 of us were taking a trip to Europe, our first ever overseas travel, to celebrate my graduation from high school. My grandparents were to stay at home, and they invited Ms. Tamada to see us off on the day of our departure. When we were about to leave home, she made a fuss in rapture as if we had been headed for space. She took pictures of us leaving, continually congratulated us, and ruined our starting part of the trip. We really didn't know her, yet she acted like a close member of our family. We set off sullenly by being seen off by a stranger. That was today's episode. My grandfather had a girlfriend suddenly when he was over 75 years old or so. And I don't know where they met, but it was his first girlfriend since he got married with my grandmother. And he went out with her for coffee and talked with her for hours over coffee and came home. So it's just his going out with his date. To me, it sounded like that. And I one day asked my grandmother, if it bothered her, but she said she didn't care. It didn't bother her at all. And so my grandmother was an interesting person. She wasn't interested in people at all. She liked to be alone, and she didn't have a friend. She just hated other people. So she was comfortable being alone, much more comfortable than being with others. And so naturally, she hated to go out. She just staying home was her liking. And she was just watching TV all day, or sewing or mending something, and cleaning something. And that was more fun for her than going out and meeting people. But my grandfather was complete opposite to her. He barely stayed home. He just acted as if he was drawn by a magnet or something, and he just went outside. And he usually went out, and of course he didn't have any task or purpose to go out. He just needed to go out. Going out is his job. And one day he made a girlfriend, and he brought her he invited her to our house. And then, strangely, my grandmother and his girlfriend hit so well together. They became a close friend. I was stunned that a person like my grandmother, who had no friend whatsoever, made a friend with her husband's girlfriend. So weird. And they got along so well, although my grandmother was getting along pretty much nobody in her life. But she liked my grandfather's girlfriend so much. And every time Ms. Tamada, my grandfather's girlfriend, visited our house, three of them, my grandparents and Ms. Tamada, were talking so happily, merrily, pleasantly. It's like, it was like other house I was entering in. So my usually quiet, somber house was like lighting up by Ms. Tamada's visit. And my grandparents were talking and chattering, and they looked so happy. That was unusual as well. And because that my grandparents liked her, mainly because Ms. Tamada praised my grandfather unnecessarily, greatly well. I mean, she raved about my grandfather's personality, my grandfather's deeds that were not so much, and just she was a big fan of my grandfather's. So she just kept admiring him and talking about how great my grandfather was, which was not true at all. He was a scary dictator of my house. He was a strong ruler of my house. So I couldn't help laughing at Ms. Tamada's comments about my grandfather, because how blind she was, I thought. If she had lived with him, she wouldn't have commented that way, I thought. And I wondered what kind of glasses could see him like Ms. Tamada described. None of what Ms. Tamada talked about my grandfather was true. And she completely misunderstood my grandfather. But every time I bumped into her inside my house, she just stopped me and say how wonderful my grandfather was and how lucky I was as his granddaughter. And I just chuckled along because I never thought that way. I wished I was I were a different person's granddaughter. Why my grandfather of all the grandfathers on earth? Why my grandfather was like that? Why I was chosen as his granddaughter? I thought that every day as a child. So that that made Ms. Tamada's comments funnier. So it's just comedy to me. And then my grandfather was talking about only himself when we had meals together, like lunch or dinner time. He didn't listen to other members talking. He just talked about himself. He bragged about what he did in the past, or he just bragged about, or he just told us his entire day. That was not interesting at all to us. We just had to be quiet and listening to his rambling while we were eating our dinner. It's like a torture, and every night we had to listen to my grandfather speaking about trash, and and then after he met Ms. Tamada, his talking changed. He began to talk about Ms. Tamada, not himself. And the cafe they went together, or the talk they had together, just our dinner time was filled with Ms. Tamada's stories. And that was more more uninteresting to us, because she was a stranger to us. So why we should listen to the happenings or stories or anything about a stranger while we were eating? We couldn't stand for the stories about my grandfather, but now we had to endure the stories about a stranger. And so our meal times were worse and worse every day. And then when we went on a trip to Europe, she happened to visit my grandparents and ruined our departure. She just clapped her hands and applauded, and she was taking pictures continuously because they are going to Europe. They were going to Europe. I wondered. I couldn't understand what was happening to us. Why we were being seen off by a stranger. And but good thing was my grandmother finally found her friend, and at least they seemed happy after Ms. Tamada came into their life. But except my grandparents, for other members of my family were so tiresome, so annoying existence Ms. Tamada was. But my grandfather kept seeing her outside, also kept inviting her into our house, and they had very good time together for a couple of years. And I heard Ms. Tamada's son worked at Nintendo. I don't know if it's true or false, but at least she told me so. As like she was so proud, too proud of her son to stay not comment on it. She just needed to brag about his son, and I heard that. But and so maybe it was true because she brought us whenever she came to our house, she brought playing cards. And back in those days, Nintendo didn't develop any game soft. Nintendo was a toy company back then, not a game company. And so she came to our house by bringing playing cards as a gift, visiting gift. But as you can imagine, there's no we don't need so many playing cards, do we? Playing cards don't get tattered so easily, so we don't have to replace them so frequently. So I thought 2 decks or 3 decks of playing cards are enough. But on every visit, Ms. Tamada brought a deck of playing cards. So our house, especially my grandparents' room, was filled with playing cards, and I wondered what use of that numerous, uncountable decks of cards. What for? But my grandparents' room had so many playing cards, so that my grandparents looked like collectors of playing cards. And was so funny because it's not a special deck or something particular designed deck. It's just an ordinary deck of cards, but my grandparents' room was getting more and more playing cards, and whenever I happen to peek into their room, there always a new deck of playing cards, and playing cards are everywhere on the TV set or on the drawers or on the bookshelves. Bookshelves were filled with playing cards, like more than playing cards were there than books themselves. So Miss Tamada was my grandfather's girlfriend, and also playing cards provider for our family. Well, that was all for today. Thanks for listening. I'm Hidemi Woods. If you are interested in my books and songs and blogs or SNS, all the links are available on my website. So if you like, visit hidemiwoods.com, HIDMY woods.com. I also put up some links to my original merchandise that features my illustrations or my designs. And so if you like, look into it as well. Thanks again. Until next time, take care and be well.